Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Infernus, and welcome back to another Miscellaneous review. A very special review today because we're taking a look at the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Probably one of my most anticipated movies of the year, and for very good reason, because without this franchise, I wouldn't be sitting here recording these videos for you guys. Like, true story. This is literally the franchise that allowed me to meet so many amazing people, and the general consensus amongst those amazing people is that this movie is excellent. But thing is, I'd say that, like, not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'd argue that I'm probably one of the more critical people in the unquote friend group that we have. So there's always the possibility that I may not like this movie as much as them. Who am I kidding? This movie is great. Like, just giving it away early. I love this movie, and if you haven't seen it already, definitely click off the review because I am going to spoil some parts about the third act. Mainly because that's definitely where a lot of the amazing stuff about this movie comes in. But what did I exactly like about this movie? Well, for one, for a movie that was made on a $20 million budget, which I guess is nothing out of the ordinary for Blumhouse because generally they keep the budgets low. But for a movie with that low of a budget, it looks awesome. Like like the set looks really great. The pizzeria actually looks like something that wouldn't be too out of place in a FNAF game. I mean, the tunnels in the back are a bit weird, but what do I know? And also the animatronics look spectacular. And what's amazing is that even though they're people in suits, they still move robotically. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if like they picked the same people that they had for like the Banana Splits movie in Willy's Wonderland, but because I'm pretty sure those guys were also people in suits, but here, like the animatronic acting is just fantastic. Like, they move like robots, and apparently Foxy himself actually was a robot or a puppet or something. But yeah, in regards to like the production design, top marks. Like, it's amazing to me that this can somehow, like, I never really had any issues with the look of the Flash, but how is it that that costs 10 times more than this, and yet generally this is considered the better looking film? Like, that's just, it's really interesting to think about, at least for me. So we've already gone over why this movie looks awesome, but how about we talk about the tone? Well, I guess not really the tone, but more the atmosphere. Now, of course, there are a lot of, day parts that are fairly normal, but when it's, when you're like in the pizzeria where the animatronics are moving, or in Mike's dreams with all the ghosts, the atmosphere is actually pretty tense. Not necessarily horror tense, but a good friend of mine, Danny Maniac, who you should go check out, she brought up that this movie is a bit more of a thriller than an actual, straightforward horror movie, and I'd say that fits pretty well. It's definitely more the thriller type, and definitely has that kind of atmosphere that would keep you on the edge of your seat for, I guess, the next big scare. That's not a knock against the movie at all, because a tense atmosphere is definitely what you'd expect from Five Nights at Freddy's. I mean, hell, I play FNAF fan games that have that same kind of tense sort of feel to them. But probably say the best thing about this movie is actually our main character, Mike Schmidt, which, yeah, even I'll admit I wasn't expecting him to be the protagonist, but here we are. And one thing off the bat that I can appreciate is that, they're establishing sort of the trauma, the thing that's driving him throughout the whole movie. It's he, that he's still, reeling with the guilt, the loss of his, younger brother at a young age when he was like 12, I think. And he's practically desperate to, find both him and the man who killed him or who kidnapped him. I don't think they even say in the movie that they killed him, at least not until the third act. But his whole character arc is about learning to let go of the brother he had in the past and appreciate the sister that he has in the present. And I always appreciate when, media, covers subjects like letting go, because I feel like that's one of the most important lessons that we can learn. And note to self, don't say stuff on one breath. Yeah, you do also get some nice characters in there as well. Like Abby is basically just like your typical kid, very stubborn, kind of, I guess, abrasive, but also very ironically very childlike and imaginative. And Vanessa was not some, like, I'll be honest, going in, I thought these characters were all just going to be made up for this movie, but it seems like they actually pulled from the games with both Mike Schmidt and maybe kind of Vanessa. It's hard to say if she's a direct reference to the security breach character or not, because I mean, yeah, they have the same name and they look similar. They're both blonde. They're both blonde women, but you know, they never really say what, Vanessa's last. So for all we could, for all we know, this could be a brand new character just with the same name and appearance, but who knows? Anyways, she's a nice little touch to, as a kind of someone who's familiar with Freddy's, but is also someone who has ties to the villain in ways that I was not expecting. But speaking of the villain, Matthew Lillard did a great job. Like, I don't know if I'd say he's my first choice, but I would say he's definitely an excellent choice, especially since it literally took me until like Thursday to realize this, but he literally has experience playing serial killers because he was Stu Macher in the original Scream. He was literally a ghost face. And you see, this is what happens when you don't study culture. Now, I would perfect movie by any means. There are some issues I have with it. First of all, the aunt whose name I keep forgetting, Aunt Schmidt. I think it was Jane Schmidt, I think. She's honestly kind of pointless. Her whole subplot is something that I feel like was only really there to extend the runtime, but honestly, I feel like not that many of us would really have minded if the movie was 90 minutes long. As it is, the only thing that would have really that removing that would have affected was just, again, the length of the movie, and it does kind of bring out the worst in some of our main characters. Excuse me. The other thing is that while I do still stand by my statement that Matthew Lillard did a great job as William Afton, and also I will say when the movie does reveal him in the yellow rabbit suit, it's a very creepy moment. The movie doesn't really do a great job building up to him. Like, he outside of the third act, he only really has appearances in the first act, and that's kind of it. Now, granted, upon rewatching the movie with a bunch of friends, I did pick up on some hints that, you know, William, knew what he was doing the whole time and was basically just sending Mike to Freddy's in the hopes that he'd basically as part of a big plan. So at the very least, it does set up that he is a mastermind of sorts, but he doesn't get enough screen time to really stand out as a as a great villain. That being said, at the very least, we get to see his death from FNAF 3 happen, and we get close-ups. So, give and take, I'd say. In a sense, he's kind of like the opposite of Scourge from Transformers Rise of the Beasts, where Scourge was set up great, but the payoff wasn't really that as well executed. Whereas William here wasn't really set up that well, but the execution and payoff was just awesome and exactly what you'd want to see from a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. And that's really the best way I can describe this movie. Just absolutely probably one of the best, probably the best that anyone could have hoped for in regards to a Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Not perfect by any means. Again, there are some plot issues that I do have, mainly with the aunt and with how they set up William. But everything else, from the production design to the atmosphere to Mike Schmidt's character arc, I think that leaves us with a movie very much deserving of a 4 out of 5. Again, certainly could have been better, but for what we got, 8 years was definitely worth it. But anyways, guys, that's going to be my review on the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. If you enjoyed, you know what to do. I'm not going to bore you with all the generic stuff. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, and Godspeed.